I think hopefully most of you all know Emily and I. I've been at Precision Sourcing for 11 years, recruiting in all things data, and I'm very capably supported by Emily.
Yes, hello. Yeah, I suppose I've been here at Precision for 5 years, working in data with Joel alongside him, and mostly data science and analytics. That's me.
Perfect. And then our great friend Dennis is here. Dennis, kindly, after watching the last webinar, which was focused more just generally towards what's happening in the market at the minute, said he was keen to help and willing to help in any of the ones we've got coming up, and this one was a really relevant one. Dennis, do you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, of course. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, so Dennis Jimenez, I've been working in the data analytics space for more than 17 years. An operational and leadership experience. I'm really passionate about data analytics, but also about people and culture. So this webinar is a perfect combination between these two worlds. Obviously, my intention is not tell people what to do, but just stimulate a little bit thinking, share what works for me, what it didn't work, what I'm struggling, and I'm looking forward to hear what the people attending to this seminar is going to share with us, and questions they're going to ask, and other views, right? So thank you for having me.
No worries. Thanks for joining us, Dennis. So, yeah, as I mentioned at the beginning, just a couple of minutes ago, please do chuck questions in, put your hands up, put it in the chat. Even if you're willing, we'll get you on the webcam and you can come in and join the conversation, because we have very much targeted today's webinar to two very specific things, which are targeted at hiring managers within data. And we're going to talk about retention, and we're going to talk about attraction. We're sort of breaking it down into 100 different topics, but we realize this is really what we're here talking about: retention, attraction. We'll start the webinar talk about retention, which is obviously something that isn't common for recruiters, where we think Dennis is going to come in, really add a lot of value. And then obviously we'll talk about attraction as well, because as we know, and I'll come to you first on this, Emily, it's a market like we've never seen before right now, basically.
Yeah, definitely is. Like, you're not wrong. It's a common conversation we've been having for probably the last, I'd say, 8 months, and it's just escalated in the last 3 to 4, I think. It's really hard to pinpoint a lot of, I suppose, trends and things like that, because everything is just so up in the air for a lot of different businesses, which is making it really hard to answer questions, I suppose, directly on the market. But hopefully we can shed a lot of light on a few different areas.
Perfect. So yeah, so we'll get into it. So why are we talking about retention? Well, I was doing the statistics for our quarterly report just this week, and I noticed from the key hiring areas that people are really looking for, like things like data engineers. In the last 18 months, more than 50% of the market have moved jobs. So if you're managing a team and you're not thinking about retention and looking after your own people first before you even consider going out there to market, then you're probably barking up the wrong tree at the minute. So our overarching message initially right now is to spend the time on your team, because it's a lot cheaper and easier in the long run to keep your good people in your team than it is to lose them and then have to go out there into the market and look for someone new. So Dennis, come to you on this one firstly. Some of the strategies that you use in terms of checking in with your team, keeping up with your team, and making sure that they're well looked after.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Look, I always consider 3 big areas when I'm thinking or talking about attraction and retention of talent. The career development, obviously, the salary, and the culture. And I always try to be really balanced. And I completely understand that every industry is different. So some industries will be able to be more, let's call it, aggressive, or invest more in the salary area. For example, I don't know if banking, for example, might have bigger budgets than other industries. So I always, depending on what company I'm working on, I play different strategies. But in general, what I try to do is, as I say, be really balanced in these 3 buckets. So normally the first thing I will do is understand my team. So try to identify the talents, the people that are really key and I need to focus, right? So it might not be the 30 people that you manage, right? You might have a few, I don't know, let's say 5, 10 people that you really want to put a lot of effort, you want to retain. So then I will focus on that once I will understand the key motivations, the key drivers, especially in these three buckets. So the career, where are they heading? Are they engaged or not? Is the culture, are they happy? And also, are they happy with the salary or not? So I will touch on that probably at the beginning of the journey, but then you need to continually, or at least is what I do, continually understand how they are progressing in this journey. So in my weekly catch-ups, we always have really kind of conversations that are not really work related, and you can feel the team, you can sense how are they feeling, are they down, are they not? So trying to get those messages, not non-verbal conversations, it really helps. But it's basically all about honest conversations, ask for feedback, and trying to push people out of the comfort zone. So I will say that those are my three top things that I try to do with my team, especially the talent I want to retain. Yeah.
So you mentioned weekly catch-ups. Is that a team-wide catch-up? Are you having a weekly catch-up with every individual member of your team?
Again, this is for me with my current role and the previous one. My team was not that big, so I could have a weekly catch-up with individual catch-up with every one of them, and then a weekly one with the whole team. Different managers might, different teams might have different approaches. Maybe it's every 2 weeks. To be honest, in my current role, there are people that wants to catch up with me 3 times a week. So we have 15 minutes, 3 times 15 minutes meetings. So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And some others that just one meeting, 15, 20 minutes on Monday, and that's fine. If I have time, and as a leader and a manager, my role is to make sure that they are happy. And if they need me, for 45 minutes a week, I should do it if it's not impacting my day to day. Yeah.
Yeah. They say it's very difficult to be effective as a manager as soon as you hit that kind of 8 to 10 mark of people in your team. If you then don't have another layer of leaders underneath that, it's difficult to actually be effective as a leader. So yeah, you're hitting the nail on the head in terms of team size. One of the things I'd like to pick up on what you said there, and I'll come to you on this one, Emily, is you said you're treating people like an individual, and that is going to be one of our key points in retention. If anyone's going to take something away, is it's very easy to go blanket approach, but we've changed that quite a bit. Precision over the last few years, Emily, and how have you seen that play out yourself?
That's true. And I use this. Oh, sorry, it was for Emily. Sorry. No.
Go ahead, Dennis. You're giving us some good content. Okay.
Oh, please, you go. I'm actually coughing.
That's all right. No, I was just going to say, it's massively evolved at Precision. We actually had a comment from a client yesterday, in fact, saying, I can't believe the type of leadership team you have, the type of things you have in place and frameworks for individuality, I suppose, at Precision. So we've had a lot of changes to our promotional criteria based on what we've contributed to the business individually, rather than, oh, you all have to meet this target and act in this certain way, which has really been helpful, and it's really encouraged people to, I suppose, excel in their own journeys, and everyone leans on everyone else for their own strengths and picks up on weaknesses from, I suppose, different individuals, which has been great. You probably add more, Joel.
And it shows up in different ways as well, and this is another key point that I want to get across to everyone on this webinar today, is that we'll get into salary in the moment, which is still the top driver for everyone in the market, but the second driver now is flexibility. And a lot of companies have spent hours, days, weeks, months developing these amazing flexibility policies that they then roll out across the entire business. And it works for 60% of the team, but it doesn't work for the other 40%. And then they start wondering, oh, well, why are people leaving? We've got this amazing new flexibility policy. It can only work to so much. Every single person is different. Everyone works differently. And we're now in a world where people expect to be able to fit work around their lives, because COVID has naturally changed that aspect. So having a flexibility policy that can work for the individual, and as long as you're getting the outcomes, that seems to be working. And the companies that are doing that, it seems to be working a lot better on. Would you agree, Dennis?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, 100%. So look, I've been working for the last 10 years from a satellite office. So the head office and all of my team members were in a different state. They were in Melbourne or internationally, and also my stakeholders. So this pandemic and flexible ways of working for me is not that new, to be honest. So I've been always really flexible, and I didn't care if the team they were in the office or not, and when. as far as they are happy and they are delivering and we are meeting our goals and business expectations. But yeah, every person is different, and that's why I was saying with some people they need 1 meeting, with some people they need 3 meetings. When you understand your team, you discover that and you get to know your team. Some people want to talk about their feelings, some people don't want to talk about their feelings, some people have really clear career goals, some people don't. So and we are doing that with data as well. So we used to put customer into personas, into categories of customers, right? Different profiles. But now with the power that we have, we can personalize to the individual and recommend to you, Joel, what you should buy in Target or wherever you go. And you go your personal email. You are not a Target anymore. You're not a male between 20 and 40. So we should do the same with the team. We should personalize the way we treat our team members. And I like to be personalized as well. When my manager talk about me and my needs, and he adapts and he doesn't care about what I do as far as I deliver, right? So I think that's the trend. You're right. Yeah. But how do you
Definitely.
apply that with your candidates, Emily? So you treat every candidate different, or you have different conversations, or how does it apply? And sorry, this
I
is on
mean,
my seminar to ask questions.
I mean, yeah, of course, everyone is so different. Like every conversation is different. Like put simply, yeah. So like obviously, I have a framework that I'll be talking to people like through questioning, for example, but it's always going to be different. And like for example, every call I will ask this one question that will determine their drivers. So for example, it will be, picture you have the right role in front of you tomorrow, you have an offer on the table, it's the best thing you could like ever imagine. What would the top 3 things be in that offer or in that company, the opportunity, in order for you to be like, right, this is it, I'm resigning tomorrow? So that kind of opens up a conversation of like, cool, okay, 3 things, it might be 5 things, I don't know, but I just keep it simple.
Brilliant. We've got a question already in from the attendees, which is great. I want to keep going to them to encourage people to definitely kind of get involved. So this is from Alicia. She said that they've got a very structured professional development and review cycle and a capability framework in place. They also know they pay quite competitively, which is good versus other employers, and also have good tech infrastructure, flexible work arrangements. So obviously a really good place to work. She's aware that recruiters are currently calling my team at the moment, but no one has taken the bait just yet. It's something that I'm aware of as well in my team. But what should you do when you're aware that recruiters are targeting your team? We're very consciously supporting people to build their own brand on LinkedIn, and we knew that this would make them poaching targets, but it's still an uncomfortable place to be. It's really, really relevant that you said that as well, because it's relevant for us in the recruitment industry. Those of you who know precision sourcing know that we are extremely active on LinkedIn, and we put ourselves out there and all of our team out there as a personal brand constantly. And that was, should we say, the recruitment industry's, well, I don't want my best recruiter out there on LinkedIn because suddenly everyone's going to start poaching them. So first things first, it sounds like you've delivered on what your team want. You've put the structures in place internally in order to make them want to stay. The fact that you're also willing to almost talk about it and say, hey, we don't mind if you're out there on LinkedIn and putting your brand out there because we're so comfortable that we want the best for you. You're already getting that buy-in from your team. I wouldn't say there's necessarily much else that you could be doing, because at the minute, all the best people are getting approached a crazy amount of time. There's nothing else to it at the moment. It honestly sounds like you've got a really good place to work there. So I don't have any further suggestions. I don't know if you, Emily, or Dennis would do on that.
I've got a story that I can share with happening at Swiss. So it was the same case. So we have a really strong culture, really positive, fantastic place to work. It was on the top, best places to work in Australia. So that was covered. We were building a data lake. So we were building the future of analytics, machine learning, latest technology. We were migrating to Power BI, to the cloud. So career goals, the team were really engaged, and the salary was okay. It's pretty good, I think. But still, I have one of the guys that decided to go, and he loved it, and he decided to go to a bank, and I couldn't understand in my head. It's like, why? But he told me in advance. So I think it's stressful because I knew there was as well, it was like a peak as well in recruiting, and I knew they were getting approached, and I created a really good relationship with the team that they were telling me. It's like, oh, by the way, I got a couple of, I'm going to go to this interview, and you get really scared. But there is so much you can do. So that they, if they want to stay, they want to stay. If they want to go, they want to go. The only thing you could do is, I think, what she's done, that creating this, this basically looking after these big buckets that we mentioned, and then creating the honest conversation relationship so they can share with you. So by the time they get the call, you might have an opportunity to ask why they're planning to go. Is there anything I can do for you? But when people decide to go, sometimes it's just time for them to go. Yeah, but it's a hard question. It's really scary, to be honest. It's really stressful.
I was going to add to that and say, like, personally, in my experience, obviously with Joel having been a manager for 5 years, there's an element of, well, there's a lot of elements, but there's definitely trust there, and the relationship, like you're talking about, Dennis, is definitely there. Like, he's provided a platform for me to be like, okay, I want this for my career. I want to get to this milestone. I'm looking at this vision for the next 5 years, and like, he's quite, like, I suppose he's on my side when it comes to that. So if ever I got offered a new role, or even if I was interviewing, I'd be like, God, I need to talk to Joel, because I feel like all of my drivers are here. Everything, all my motivators are at Precision. Why would I want to move? So it would have to be a pretty good move. And to be honest, I'm really transparent with Joel, and I think everyone at Precision is generally transparent across the board. So it really comes down to that relationship, I think, that you have with your team.
Definitely. The one thing that's kept me at Precision more than anything else is that I don't have to ask for things, because I know that my drivers are understood, that the people who lead me then action that and implement that maybe 2 months down the line from that conversation, they pull me in and say, hey, XYZ's happening based on what you want from your career. Would you like to do this? Would you be interested in this? And that could be anything from a pay review to more people in your team to a different project to work on, whatever it is, whatever your drivers are. So knowing your team that intimately it sounds like all three of us are saying is the key thing here. So, but it sounds like a great place to work with Felicia's. So, let's talk about salary, because it's the conversation that doesn't happen too much, and it really, really should. Obviously, it's easy for us to say what's been happening out there in the market. On average, in 2022, 2021, should I say, the salaries have gone up around 20% across the board within data. That obviously, if you're sat here thinking, well, mine hasn't, that's an average in different areas going up and down. We've seen the biggest activity around doers, is what we would like to say, that mid-level, people who can actually action the strategy and the leader's thoughts. But one of the things that we run into a lot, Emily, is the internal parity conversation, which everybody wants to keep, but doesn't necessarily know how to navigate. And I know we haven't got all the answers for it necessarily here, but what are the questions that you should be, I guess, ask yourself in terms of internal parity? I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that, Dennis, like how you go about that. How often do you analyze, is my team on the correct salary versus the market?
The salary is an interesting topic. It's a really fine line, and I was thinking about this a couple of weeks ago, and it happens with every area of the business as well. When you talk about something, in my head, people in general, they think it's going to happen. So if you talk about salary too much, you might plant a seed that it wasn't there, but then it is now, and they start wondering, is it my salary? Why is my manager asking, is my salary not competitive? So you need to be careful how you ask, and depending on what person and what context, because you don't want to plant seeds on people's heads when they didn't have it. But at the same time, which is a difficult balance, you need to be aware if they are happy or not. So I don't have a formula that works all the time. It depends on my team members, it depends on the people, it depends on the relationship. But in general, what I will do at least twice a year is do a benchmark in the market, which is not easy to find the information, to be honest. So sometimes having friends in recruitment might work. Hi, Emily. But so, you can go online and try to figure it out if the salary of your team members is fair or not. So you mitigate the risk, or have those conversations with those people that you want to retain, and you have a feeling that it's not really fair.
I agree.
But yeah, that's basically what I do. But I don't know if there
My
are people listening that can have better ideas, to be honest.
Well, I'd say my counter to the obviously putting the seed of doubt in someone's mind question, I would suggest it's better that it's you putting the seed of doubt in their mind than someone externally from the business putting the
Yeah.
seed of doubt, or their friend saying, "Hey, what salary you're on?" Right? Because at least you can control the narrative in some senses in that way. Unfortunately, right now, no matter what anyone says, and we're going to get to another question from Alicia, which is awesome. So thank you so much for getting involved. Even if you think your team isn't motivated by salary, oh God, I'm like a politician, aren't I, doing that thing? Even if you think your team isn't motivated by salary, in our talent survey, every single year we've been doing it in the data market since 2016, it has consistently been the biggest driver across the board. So whilst they say, oh, it's not about the money, it is always about the money, at least to a certain degree. So that needs to be dealt with before anything else, in my opinion. And the stats show that in the market. And this leads nicely to Alicia's question, where she said, here's another question. We're currently investigating employee share schemes to further generate some buy into the business. Our team is not actually motivated by financials. However, I think psychologically, this is important to further cement their connection to the business. We're working this out at the minute. So do you have any memorable examples of what other businesses have done with these types of schemes that might be helpful? So I will offer two. One is internally myself, actually. I am part of a profit growth scheme. And I'm happy to share that. I won't say how much that is or what that is, but that is not the bulk of my salary. It is not, it's something that I didn't achieve for a number of years as well. But psychologically, that was always in the back of my mind that if I can help drive this business forward, then I will be rewarded financially. And that was just pure bottom line profit. Maybe a little bit easier in my line of work because of smaller business and also an outcome based role. However, once I started seeing that, I really dove into it. I think Emily will attest to this. Yes, I manage a team at Precision that's 35% of the team. I do stuff across the business because I know that if I can get the whole business forward, then I'll benefit from that. So whilst I always thought, yeah, I hit a certain level of money, I'm fine now. Once you start seeing it, it really does motivate you. So anything that can be tied directly to profit, I think people try and steer clear of it, but it actually does work because it's a tangible, okay, if we all together do this, we're on the same journey, we're on the same path. The other thing that I've seen out there with a number of the, not startups, the kind of next stage startups that we've seen, is that obviously that share buyback scheme. It's usually a 3-year program. I think, Emily, you'd probably agree on that. It's a 3-year program. If we hit X, Y, Z in this time, you'll be able to start buying back those shares, and it's significant amounts. And they offer it the same, no matter the level that you are, whether you are entry-level analyst after 3 years, whether you're COO after 3 years, they have the similar kind of scheme. So I don't know if there's anything else that you've seen, Emily, that's worked.
I mean, I remember one of the clients we were working with maybe last year were at the like middle of, or maybe the end of their, what I'd say, startup phase, and they're going into their massive growth phase, and they had a lot of capital and investment and stuff like that. And one of the key selling points for one of the senior roles, and I think it was actually across the board to a degree, but not the same scale, was the shares component. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was a really interesting role to work on because a lot of people are actually driven by that. I noticed, obviously, they're a bit more senior, so that was, I suppose, a different kettle of fish. They might be ready to take that risk and things like that, but definitely have people asking me that every day, especially doers, how that works internally. Yeah.
Have you seen anything, Dennis, or any of the businesses you've worked in similar?
No, they're really good initiatives, and I'm taking notes. We used to do salary sacrifice, but it's not really engaging you to continue. But you could use some of your salary to buy things, even buy a car, or to put it on your superannuation, or buy whatever you wanted before it incurring taxes. That used to help some of the team members. We used to do as well for really big projects, bonus incentives for every single person. It doesn't matter, as you say, if it was, you know, the top or the doers, as you said before. Everyone will have a piece of cake if we deliver on time, and that used to work, especially for that short, you know, project, which normally was like a year or so. But yeah, those are really good, interesting questions. From the culture perspective, we used to do a lot of initiatives that you. So I always say you need a balance, but sometimes with salary, and I don't really like to compete in salary, because if someone's motivational driver is salary, sooner or later someone is going to offer a little bit more money. And do you really want people in your company that the main driver is salary or money? Probably not. Probably you want someone that really believes in the purpose of the company, the goals, that likes the people, I don't know, the culture, the whole idea of the company. So yeah, so what we used to do as well is write to work schema, so you will be able to get a bicycle and the company will pay for that. I don't know what else. We used to do yoga. We used to do a lot of meditation every day at 3 p.m. Massage. I don't know. There are small things that might contribute. It's not really salary, but again, I don't really like to play in that ground
No,
too
I
much.
understand that.
It needs to be fair, and it needs to be good salary. But
Of course.
yeah,
I think
I don't want to fight there. Yeah.
I think that might be, we don't necessarily disagree in this sense, because I have a pure belief that if everyone in your business and your team knows the vision, knows the purpose, and what their role is and how they play a part in that journey, you're always going to get more buy-in. But going back to that individual management piece, I still think there are some people out there who say, if you pay me exceptional amounts of money, I will give you exceptional work, and that's it. That's what you'll get from me. And I think that's okay still at the end of the day as well. The problem with that becomes if then you've got a few like that and the others who are all bought into vision, and you start getting, different, I guess, clicks, and it can't work in that sense. But, one of my colleagues at Precision Sourcing, he's very blunt and he's been there 7 years. He's very blunt in, as long as I'm hitting my goals, I will stay in the business. And obviously he is. He's been there 7 years. But his viewpoint is, I could do this anywhere, but I'm hitting my goals. And he works harder than anyone I've ever met. So, I think there's different ways of thinking in that sense. We've got more questions coming, so we're going to keep going with a couple more, and then we'll get into the hiring strategies, which we're going to start with some of these questions. But Steph has asked, our salaries are fair, but not as competitive as these increases in the market. That's completely understandable. We already offer a lot of perks and flexibility. Is there something more that we can do? I'll go twofold on this one. Firstly, the quickest and easiest way to increase salaries within the team is to increase their value internally within the business. If the deliverables of that team suddenly become more essential to the running of the business, those conversations of, hey, can we get more money for my team, become a hell of a lot easier. And I'm sure you'll agree with that, Dennis. If you can show the worth. I'll then go with something that we implemented. Obviously, we offer a lot of perks around flexibility and whatever else. We implemented a 4-day work week, and we get paid for 5. And I'll go to you, Emily, on how that's worked out for you and for us.
I was literally going to jump in and say that I feel like if you can't compete on salary, compete on flexibility and lifestyle. And honestly, it's changed my life personally, mentally, physically, emotionally. It's changed the business in terms of their mindset as well, with how we go about, I suppose, our days, our outcomes. It's become more outcome focused. Obviously, it is a role that is a little bit more outcome focused, but more so that there's trust, I suppose, there as well, that if you're going to not work, or you're going to keep to your 4 days, but if we have work to do, we'll work on a Friday. But quite simply, the flexibility and the knowing that no one's going to bug you on that day is just so good. And we've seen increases in, like, I think not salary surveys, employee surveys we do, I think every month, every quarter, I can't remember, Joel, and the amount of feedback that leadership are getting that around that is just like mind-blowing. And I think everyone at Precision could agree and say that it's the best thing that's ever happened to Precision.
Yeah, it's the best thing that ever happened to me. So much so my wife started working 4 days as well, and so we get an extra day. We don't do, it's not a full 37.5 hours in the 4 days, Steph. It is just a normal work day. And because we're outcome driven, the better way of describing it is probably that flexible Friday. For example, if Dennis was Friday 11 a.m. urgent roles need filling, Joel, Emily, where are you? We're not just gone, right? We're there, we're professional, we're contactable. So it's just, you could take that call from a golf course, maybe something like that, right? So we stumbled onto it. We know it can't work for every company, but I guess it's a really good example of how you can really use that work-life balance and flexibility. But more importantly, the last topic of retention I really want to hit on today is that mental health piece, especially right now. If you look at how much people are struggling with lockdown, yes, there is a lot of awareness now out there in the world about mental health, but not a lot of companies are putting into action. They're just talking. Oh yeah, we're aware of mental health. We know what it is. We know what it needs to do. Putting in place things like this, the 4-day work week, people come back in on a Monday with a completely different attitude. I mean, we know what everyone will come back in on Tuesday next week like. They'll be ready to go because they've had the 3-day weekend. So it doesn't have to just be that, but we've completely changed how we view mental health at Precision Sourcing. We talk about it a lot. We share mistakes. We share learnings. And we make it a more open environment. And I know you, Dennis, have got a really great scheme that you use, which is Grow and Learn, is it? That you've done before?
Yeah, grow, learn, and improve. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to maybe just quickly tell us a bit about that?
Yes. No, so I agree with you. If you cannot compete in salary, well, I've done both. So if I have really concerns about someone leaving, and I just did it 2 months ago, and that person I think, is key for the business. I did actually build a business case and say, look, this is the person, this is all of the things he's doing, this is how important it is for the business, this is the value, but this is his salary, and unfortunately, this is the salary in the market right now. So we need to do something about it. And then it got approved, and I was lucky, and he was extremely happy. So hopefully he will stay. But if you don't have that capability, right, because you don't have the budget, I agree with you. You should compete on everything else, which is the culture, the flexibility, and the career progression. We have a really strong culture in Swiss, as I was saying before. I didn't mention before, but I was the head of data and analytics at Swiss for 9 years, and we have what we call LGI moments, learn, grow, and improve. So you make mistakes, something positive, so everyone can share it. We also have something called H&H days, happy and healthy days. So every month you will have a long weekend. Every month you have a Friday or Monday off. You can choose what, and obviously you can agree that with with the business, so it's not impacted. And you could potentially be contactable if something is on fire. But we always had a long weekend every weekend, which is good. And then if you quantify that in money, and you can show it to someone to retain someone or to hire someone or attract talent, right? You can say, well, this is actually 20K more per year, or 30K, whatever it is. So you could do all of these perks count. And to be honest, happiness, the salary will make you happy. Probably the first or second salary, the first 1 day a month, and then you need to deal with the work and the reality the rest of the month. So again, people drive fully because of the salary. I'm not sure if that's the person I will hire to my team, to be honest.
No, that makes sense. But I like what you said there about quantifying it. So we offer 25 days holiday at Precision. But our base salaries are, I wouldn't say they're the best in the industry. But we can say, well, there's 5 more days pay literally that you're getting to not work. So it as long as you make them think, well, that's actually on my bottom line, rather than, oh, it's just a nice perk to have. I think that's a really good way of putting it. So we'll move across to attraction, because we're already over halfway. I know retention is a key piece, and we could always come back to it. There's more questions, and we're going to go through a timeline on this one. But before we do that, this has got a great question, which is, we've started to target candidates in New Zealand because they have work rights. Are there any other markets that might have people that could be open to relocating to Australia? So it's a great question, because we've just been talking about this at Precision this week, because of obviously expectations of the borders opening hopefully soon. We think it will be a drip feed of people coming in. So we have started on, or will be starting on, targeted marketing campaigns to people who've lived in Australia, maybe have PR or citizenship already, who might be looking to return once those borders do open. And there are ways through the likes of LinkedIn where you can build specific searches that maybe you select the universities in Australia that they attended, or the schools that they attended. That would be my advice, rather than going for maybe people from the UK want to move to Australia, because they always going to be people from the UK wanting to move to Australia, but there's 65 million of them. How do you narrow in and target on that target market? And yeah, New Zealand's a great one. We definitely target that ourselves as well. But I think a lot of the blockers that companies have is that visa situation, right? So if you can get that PR or citizenship straight away and bring them in that way, that might be a good route to market. But now to get into the timeline. So coming to you first, Dennis. So we're going to kind of lean on you a little bit here for the first 2 or 3 sections of this, because this is the part that recruiters are traditionally not involved in. And I'd love to learn more about and maybe how we can get more involved and help companies. So first step is the business case, right? If you want to hire someone, you've got to do the business case. So how do you start that? Where do you even go with that? Over to you.
Yeah, no, that's a really good one. We start with the business case and trying to write the position description and get it approved in the budget, right? The first challenge I normally have is justify that position, right? I need to justify ROI, and right now it's really difficult with the market at the States. Justify, a data engineer to move data from A to B that I need to pay X. How I'm going to justify that to the business? So you need to be really smart about that and building that business case. Sometimes what I do is I might start with some contract to start showing value, and then I can make that person full-time or go to market. For me, writing the position description is also really critical because it's the moment you are attracting talent. So it's not only to convince the business, but it's also to create a really good position description. And I was reading an article a few years back that if you put too much detail and too much technical expertise and too many requirements, it looks like you were actually decreasing the number of women that will apply. I think it was like 60%, because men are more prone to take the risk and say, I did that. I kind of do it. I will apply. And they take the risk, but women might be like really honest and say, no, actually I have no experience on this, so I'm not gonna apply. So you need to be really smart on that. But yeah, the business case is all about creating that ROI, that trying to prove that the business really need that. What I normally do is I will put the current team that I have, I will put a list of all of the things we're doing, all of the things that are coming, and show the gaps and say, well, look, you guys want all of these projects deliver, all of these initiatives the business needs, and this is how much we can do with the current team. So if you want all of this, we need to hire this person, and this is how much it's going to cost. Or if not, we need to start, prioritizing and removing some of the items. Yeah, that's what happened in the background.
It's just the stuff that we never see. I really liked what you mentioned there about the job adverts, because you're right. I've seen that study too. You need to minimize the experience required in order to attract a diverse shortlist. We've now started putting our adverts out there with the first question that we ask ourselves is, what is the person that we're looking for here? Let's not look for the whole market. Who are we looking for? And then our first line in a job advert now says, what will this job do to change your life? So many job adverts out there, just a laundry list of, oh, we need you to do this. Well, I think that thinking now has to flip. What will this job do for you is the first half of a job advert. And if you can start getting into that mindset when you're building your business case as well, it'll help you define who you want. Then we get to budget approval. And I'm pretty sure, Emily, you'd agree with me. I don't think anyone's ever rung us at budget approval time to ask us about salary. We always get asked that when the jobs come to market, right?
Yeah, definitely. We are, I'd say, before the approval process, which can be frustrating, but means we can be good advisors, I suppose, to our clients that are asking.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things that people don't realize is that 99 out of 100 recruiters, if they get a whole call from a hiring manager saying, hey, we're going through our budget approval, I'd love to get some market information of what salaries out there are. I'm not saying that I'm going to be able to use you, but I'm still coming to you as the expert. They will give you that answer. Because why wouldn't they? Because they know, obviously, in the long run, if you can't fill it, they'll come to you. But also, in a year from now, 2 years from now, that client can go, well, that person helped me. That's the person I'd want to use. So have you ever even considered that, Dennis, when you're doing that budget approval? Where are you plucking your numbers from in that sense?
Yeah, to be honest, no. I never call. If I'm not going to go through a recruitment agency, I will normally try to get it myself or get it through HR, which HR, I'm sorry, but they normally get it wrong because they don't know the market. So they will give you a really low number normally. So I will try to get it from other offers online in seek.com.au and LinkedIn, someone that has the courage to put the salary on the role. And then I will do my own research. There are some PDFs and some websites that you can get the data. But yeah, that's the first question. And then the second one is going to be OPEX or CAPEX? So is this going to be a long-term position, or is going to be a short contract? Some business are really CAPEX friendly. Some others are okay with OPEX. And this is when you need to start thinking about that business case and how to justify that. And yeah, sometimes you just need to externalize a specific item to show value because you don't have enough to prove that ROI.
Yeah, I can't imagine what it's like talking to people who maybe don't understand what the data team does to try and then go and get that budget approval. It must be a journey to get there. So let's talk about these attraction strategies then, because I think that's really key when we get to this. So first things first, the interview process. People need to be thinking about what their interview style is, what their interview process looks like. What have you seen recently, Emily, in terms of shortened interview processes, technical testing being moved to the side? What have companies been doing that's been working for them at the minute?
Yeah, I think the key is they're listening to the market. So like if it means they have to scrap one interview because this person might have another opportunity on the table or potentially get an offer the next week, they'll scrap 2 interviews and only put 2 people that are relevant in there when the other 2 maybe weren't quite so relevant. There's been clients that have had interview processes around 4 stages. They've cut them down to 2. They've taken out the technical testing as well, and had like technical people questioning them with the set of questions, obviously. Obviously it's different per role, but I think that's really imperative at the moment to like listen to the market, listen to the speed. Speed is your absolute friend at the moment because everything is just going so quickly. And if you can't compete on salary, like the speed will get you there, I think, as well, if you can beat someone out of the park with times or timelines.
Yeah, if you show you're extremely interested in that person, their desire to join your business is going to increase because they're like, oh my God, this company really wants me. They must think I'm really good. Now, to counteract that, Dennis, how do you as a hiring manager not go too quickly, but still manage to have a really condensed, solid interview process, but also make sure that you are assessing both the technical and the soft skills? Do you have any recommendations what people could do around that, apart from maybe bringing in more people to the one interview?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and it's not always easy to answer, but because sometimes you depend on HR, and they might have a really strict process. But I just want to mention that the interview for me, and the same way you mentioned that the job description is an interview for you. For the candidate is interviewing you, and you are interviewing the candidate. So he's also making a decision if he want to join you, and at the same time that you are deciding if he's the right person. So some people are still using a really old style, the good cop and bad cop, and let's put the person on the spot. I don't think that's the right way to do it anymore. We realize that actually you need to be create a really comfortable, interview and atmosphere so they can be the best and answer the best way. So I think for me, the best way to attract talent in this process is, as you say, do it quickly. Ask really relevant question. It is really frustrating when you're in an interview and the hiring manager is got a set of questions and is not listening to you. You can tell and that he's not listening to your answers. He's just going through his list because he's well prepared, but he's completely out-tuned and he's not there. That is horrible. And straight away, I think you are removing 50% of the candidates. If you are busy, if you are not in the right state of mind, postpone the interview. That will be my advice until you are going to be fully committed. Be quick because, as you say, right now in the market, if you're going to take 5 months, it's gone, or 5 weeks, even 5 weeks, I would say.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah,
well,
make people feel comfortable, I would say, is my advice.
As Alicia has said, they had a second interview on a Friday, a reference check on a Monday, and their laptop arrived the next day for a Wednesday start. So, I mean, what you've done there is you've cut out a big portion of where people have been going wrong, offer to start date, that 4, 5, 6 weeks, however it is, or that time from offer to contract in front of the person, they're still getting calls, they're still getting messages. So basically that means their company have recognized what's happening in the market but they haven't just gone, oh, we need to move quickly. They've gone, what are our processes behind the scene in order to be able to get this done? How are we going to get the laptop out quickly? How are we going to get the references done quickly? So they've actually thought ahead rather than just being reactive in the moment. And as Alicia says, that person was so good, it was worth it. So yeah, 100%, you should be doing that. A systemized recruitment process is super important.
I was just going to add to that actually for an idea for people who are struggling to like keep up with the market. It's really like actually really helpful when you get on a call with this person if you really like them, just to understand like, if they had any more questions, get a bit more buy-in, talk through like any questions they weren't feeling comfortable to ask on that interview, because and then obviously that comes into your sort of value proposition to them as well, like what can I do to give you more information, like that kind of, I suppose it's like an ego stroke to a degree, but also it's helpful for you knowing about the candidate too, where they're at. And that's really helpful. It doesn't have to be long. It can be 15 minutes. It can be 30, like 5. I don't know. That's been really helpful recently as well.
Alicia was saying she wasn't even involved. She delegated to the team and they did a great job. So you obviously delegated really well there. To go back to a couple of pieces during the interview, Dennis, you touched on a really key point that I'd love to go over again, because the one piece of advice that I really try and instill in the candidates that we put forward to roles is, can you knock the interviewer off their proposed script even? Can you knock them off and make them just have a conversation with you and forget about what they came in there to try and find out, and just come out of that interview going, you know what, I didn't ask half the questions I was planning to do, but my God, I had a great conversation with that person. So you're saying flip that round as the interviewer and try and go for that to attract the candidate. And I agree, because we always advise candidates to give the answer and ask a question at the end of the answer. Okay, I've told you how I've built a Power BI dashboard before. Is this similar to how you build it at XYZ company? How else would you do it within the business? The manager starts going, oh, they're interested in our processes. Well, we do it this way. Maybe they get up a screen and they start showing. That's an interview. That's the best way to try and get the person that you want. So I think you've rightly hit the nail on the head. I think especially with contract roles, they come in with, have you got this technical skill? How many years have you used it? When did you use it? It's no good anymore, right? So okay, so you've interviewed, you found someone that you like. So what happens next, Emily? What are we doing at that point? What are we seeing that's not working out there? Obviously, lowball offers, but maybe talk about that. Anything else that you're seeing?
I think the most common thing that's coming up is lack of communication and lack of feedback. I think people really love it when you have like real clear, concise, specific feedback. If you like them, that's also applicable. If you didn't like them, or it didn't work out for whatever reason, that's even more applicable. But I find that that's the one thing that's lacking at the moment. People are going dark, or like you say, the offers are coming in slow, or there's just not enough communication around what the timelines will be. So that is the key, communication.
Yeah, I agree. I was just talking to one of our colleagues, Bethany, this morning, and they had a candidate, one of the businesses she's working with, that they really want. And this 2 days later, okay, you said you really want them. What's happening? Rings the hiring manager. No, I've said we want to hire this person. Why have we not hired it? It's in the talent acquisition's inbox. He wasn't communicating with talent acquisition, and vice versa. This candidate now has 2 other offers in that 2 days. Now, yes, he still wants this role, but unless we now get that offer out today, gone. So that just 2 days of poor communication internally can mean you lose someone right now. So I think that's a great point. Have you got any, experience with that, Dennis, of a good working relationship, perhaps with a talent acquisition team that was really on the ball?
Actually, a recent example, as a candidate, I went through a recruitment process. There were really good things and really bad things. The bad things I will say is that it was 7 interviews. The good thing is that they have an LSA, so in 24 hours they will let you know how you went. So if you had an interview today at lunch, before lunch time tomorrow, you will get a call from HR and tell you did amazing or thank you, but no. I think that is excellent. At least my experience was fantastic. However, they did it 7 times, and it was not that amazing that for I don't know how many months we were interviewing, but yeah, that communication for me is key, and I normally actually call the candidate. So if I'm really happy with what they done, I might call them the same afternoon or the next day and say, guys, mate, you did amazing. I would love you to go to the next phase. How do you feel? Did you like the interview? Do you have any concern? Would you like to go to the next round? And I think they feel better connected, and you can start creating that relationship and that engagement with you, because they feel that you like them and you appreciate their work and the professional experience. So that's what I do. Yeah.
No, that's great feedback. And I've actually, people might not know, but recruitment consultant is the second most in demand job in Australia at the minute. So for us as well, it's extremely difficult to find people. So I've started telling people at the end of the interview, hey, I really enjoyed that discussion. That's really gone well. No pressure right now, but from my side of things, I'd love to see you again. Go away, have a think about that. If that person then turns around and goes, oh yeah, no, for me as well, I'd love to come back. You're onto something. They might not say that right then and there and still come back later, but if you know, let's get it moving, right? Let's be that simple. Now, we haven't got long left. We've got one more question for Melissa, which I'd love to get to because it's quite a specific one. But I want to come to you, Dennis, with one more question, and maybe Emily has some thoughts on it. Is the question mark of, is it worth taking a 7 out of 10 candidate, making up the 3 out of 10 over 6 months in the role, versus waiting 2 or 3 months for your perfect candidate? It's a question that we're getting a lot. It's a really hard balance to find. I don't think there's a definitive answer for it, but would you prefer to spend the hours interviewing and waiting 2 or 3 months for the perfect candidate? Or would you rather spend the time on that person, maybe with a great attitude, who's a 7 out of 10 over the course of 6 months?
The second option for me. So I always try to, if there is a gap, I prefer that the gap to be in the hard skills that we call, so the technical skills. If he's got really good soft skills, which they are not soft, by the way, they are, in my opinion, they are really hard to get and find. But yeah, so always aptitude over technical. But sometimes you need someone that they hit the ground running. So sometimes you don't have that privilege because you're in a in a project that is late, or you have some priorities, business priorities. But then what do? You wait another 3 months. So it's never an easy one. So it depends on the case, the project, the business urgency, and the candidate and the feeling you have with that person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So Emily, no, you're right. It does depend on the situation. So I guess, Emily, this is the kind of conversations we're having early in the process with people that we work with, right? It's what do you need to hit the ground running person? Have you got the capacity and team to train someone? Like, how are you going about those conversations, and how receptive have people been to that?
It's a tough one because I think a lot of people want to, I suppose, cast the net wider when they've done the sort of narrow search. So it's hard to convince, I suppose, to think about that like 7 out of 10 versus 10 out of 10, because naturally they've probably seen a unicorn before and they've probably had one in their team and they probably want to replicate that person, which is fair enough because they probably added a lot of value. But I think it's about changing the mindset and thinking, okay, well, that person would have been great, but what if I have someone else that's got 7 out of 10 of those skills that they had, and we could train them up? And what happens to retention then? Are they going to stay longer? Like, that unicorn might leave sooner because they've just exhausted their skill set and like challenge potentially there. So yeah, I think it's a challenging conversation, but there is a lot of reception from that conversation. I think it's just about like timing. Like at the start, they're really reluctant to say, yeah, definitely, or they'll say, yeah, definitely, and then go back on their word. I think you've had that like recently as well, John.
A few times. It's, oh yeah, we can bend on that. 5 weeks of interviews later, no, we need that. No, we need that. No, we need that. Then 5 weeks later, oh God, yeah, we're not going to get that, are we? Okay, fine, we'll bend on that, right? So, it is a case of, I guess, maybe sometimes they need to touch the hot pan to know it's hot. But it's the most important conversation that we're having at the minute. I think it comes with confidence and time. I know now my hiring decisions compared to 7 years ago when I started leading the team, I'm much more willing to take a bit more of a punt now on a 7, 8 out of 10, because I trust my skills as a leader a little bit more. If I'm a new leader, I probably don't trust that as much anymore, so that might be a factor.
Joel, sorry, just to add another perspective on that. Sometimes, unfortunately, you need to prove the business that, because if I hire someone that is not productive, the project will be really slow and that person will impact the product, whatever we're building. And then it's a really tough conversation to have. So sometimes, unfortunately, you need to prove the business that you've been trying to find that unicorn for 5 weeks. You couldn't find anyone. So you propose, I'm going to hire this person. It's not perfect. He's gonna do it. He's amazing. He's gonna really, or she's got really good, aptitude, but it might take a little bit longer. And then they understand. It's like, yeah, look, we are not gonna wait another 5 weeks to find that person. That is impossible. Let's do it. And then the project can, the timelines can be renegotiated. So it's another perspective. Sometimes it's not, the hiring manager being stubborn. Sometimes it's like it's just business, the business needs and the conversation and politics and things that happen that nobody likes, but they are there.
No, you're right. And that's what we would call getting to the core. And as a leader of a team of recruiters who I spend a lot of my time talking them off ledges going, well, do we know the core reason behind why this has gone slow? Do we know the core reason why they haven't hired that person? You can say left, right, and center about it, but at the end of the day, those candidates are sitting there waiting for feedback. Is it just a case of we haven't found the right candidate yet? Not that the hiring manager's been slow. We need to get to that core reason, like you said. So final question of the webinar. Thanks for staying with us, especially Alicia. Now, I hope I'm saying Alicia's name right. I know Alicia is aware of staying out here. I had a friend at school, Alicia spelled this way, so we've gone with Alicia. It's quite a specific one. We're hoping to pick up a few disgruntled new hires from the big 4 or 5 consulting firms. Based on your knowledge of the market, how would you approach a conversation with someone in one of those firms to convince them to go to a boutique, a lovely place like ours? I would say the first thing is you've got to find out why they're disgruntled, right? I mean, we don't want to blanket people in the big 4 or 5 consultancies that they are all disgruntled, because we know some people absolutely love it, right? It's an issue that we have at Precision. Sometimes we're a smaller boutique recruitment agency versus some of the bigger ones, Hayes, Randstad, whoever else in the world. I see it as 2 different businesses personally. I think they're opposite ends of the spectrum. So I would be leaning on what we would lean on at Precision around that individualism. You get a lot more rope to try new things, be creative, be part of something rather than be a cog, right? I mean, these are the obvious things that everyone would suggest. I would also suggest that, contrary to popular belief maybe, but the big 4 consultancies don't really pay the best. They go on brand name. Would you agree, Emily? Or
Yeah, definitely. They're always under market rate, and to be honest, I think that's probably part of the reason why they might be a bit disgruntled. Obviously not the only part, but yeah, I would say, like, we've worked with a lot of big 4, we've worked a lot with like smaller consultancies, and their value proposition is we've been there, we've done that big 4 world. We understand like that's part of some people's growth and development, and it is a really good opportunity for people to learn quite quickly, and I suppose be thrown in the deep end. But you could, might be something that you need to think about, Alicia, but like your value proposition can be like, we're obviously family run or owned. We don't like work you to the bone. You're not another cog. You will be heard. You will have an impact, and then you can back it up with examples that you have in your mind.
Very much. I don't know if you've ever targeted big 4 consultancies, Dennis, yourself, or any tactics that you've done?
No, I haven't. No, nothing to add. I think you made really good comments here.
Good. All right. Well, look, it's 1:29. Any further comments, Emily or Dennis, before we go?
Just going to say, like, reach out to us if you are like wanting like insight on the market. Like Dennis obviously mentioned, he doesn't really think about that when he's looking to build a business case. Like, we're happy to give you information, put simply. So, yeah.
And Dennis, as always, thanks for getting involved, mate. We really appreciate it. We always love chatting to you and learning from you. And obviously this will get clipped up and snipped and put out into LinkedIn, so your words will be going out there to lots of people to help them as well. So yeah,
wise words.
Wise words as always. And thanks to everyone who stuck around to the end.